Sound the alarm. What's happening, my YouTube friends? We're not going to be here long today. We're going to be quick and concise. I got shit to do tonight. But I've been wanting to do this for a while. So I was triggered to go ahead and do it this evening. I heard some brothers on a YouTube stream talking about Dr. Ben. Can you guys hear me well? Hit the number 8 if you can hear me well before I continue. When I see some 8s, I will continue and I will go in and we're going to make this plain and simple. Thank you, Rashonda Hayward. You quick at the trigger today. You get some free gummies sent to you. All right. Thank you, Chefrine. So hello to everybody in the chat, right? And everybody in the bushes, right? I heard some brothers talking about Dr. Ben, his legacy, what he did or did not do. And I'm just sitting back listening. And they asked a question that had me stumped. A guy said, "What did Dr. Ben get right?" As they're making excuses for this man in his gross deceit and deception to African Americans, someone asked, we always talk about what he got wrong or he was fraudulent. Somebody asked what he got right. And I said to myself, well, let me see what they got to say. No one answered. No one replied or said a damn thing. You know why? He didn't get much right. Before I go in, let me just tell you in a nutshell what Dr. Ben was. He was an Afrocentric, teaching that the ancient Egyptians was black. Had a rudimentary knowledge of ancient Egypt. On the topic of ancient Egypt and or Egyptology, he was a subpar teacher. He was a subpar teacher, meaning his students or those who claim to sit at his feet got a subpar education about ancient Egypt. Follow me. I, who sat at the feet of Dr. Ben's students, got a subpar education about ancient Egypt. Dr. Ben was more so a storyteller and a comedian on stage. Over the last 4 years, I've listened to a few of his lectures, and I said, this cat's always telling jokes and stories. He never delves deep into Egyptology, unless he's glorifying them as black. I said, black folk really not into history unless someone's glorifying them in history, romanticizing them in history. Outside of that, they're not into history. I had to think about this, and I've been saying this for a while. So Dr. Ben was a storyteller, a comedian, and he would infuse and mix in his lecture arguments about religion, Christianity, and Islam. I'm not making this up. This is real. If you go to Dr. Ben's lectures, he's doing a bunch of storytelling. He may touch on a few aspects of ancient Egypt. Then he'll get to talking about Christianity and Islam and how Christianity and Islam is no good for black folk. That's it. Subpar teacher. Snake oil salesman. Why do you say that, Chief X? Prove your words about Dr. Ben, Chief X. I will. Let's go. Let's start off with a few things that you've already read before and heard before, but I'm going to elaborate on them as I touch on certain points through his Wikipedia page, through the article the LA Times wrote for him, through schools that he first taught at in America, which was called the Harlem Prep School. Harlem Preparatory School that started in 1967. No one talks about this, but let's go. Let me share my screen. And where is this wiki? Okay, first, let's just start off with the Wikipedia page and briefly go through it, and we're going to move on to other aspects. Full name Joseph Alfredo Antonio Ben Jochannan. The J is silent. 1918 to 2015, he was referred to as Dr. Ben, was an American writer and historian. He was considered to be the one of the most prominent Afrocentric scholars by who? Some black nationalists. Some, because many black scholars who actually had PhDs, who actually had credentials, didn't agree with him. They left it alone. One being Professor Henry Louis Gates. We'll touch on that later. While most mainstream scholars, who? Mainstream scholars, such as Mary Leskowitz, dismissed him because of the basic historical inaccuracies in his work, as well as disputes about the authenticity of his educational degrees and academic credentials. Why, in the black community, in this so-called, not the black community, excuse me, let me not put, in this so-called conscious community, do we always have an issue and a problem with people's credentials? All this flim-flamming and lies and authenticity and people critiquing, was this a real credentialed person? Why do we have to go through that? Early life and education, Dr. Ben stated he was born in Ethiopia to a Puerto Rican Jewish mother. Think about that. A Puerto Rican Jewish mother. Now, if you want to be a part of my clique that came from West and Central Africa to the diaspora areas, the Caribbean, the Americas, and what have you, usually people will say what? I'm an Afro-Puerto Rican. Dr. Ben couldn't even say that. As if his mother was strictly Puerto Rican Jewish. Not Afro-Puerto Rican, none of that. And an Ethiopian Jewish father. I had to look up what an Ethiopian Jewish father was. But let's move on. Other sources say that he was probably Puerto Rican, but came to be of Ethiopian Jewish extraction. Ethiopian Jewish extraction. In March 2015, following his death, the New York Times reported there is little evidence for that. For all these ethnic claims, there is what? Little evidence for that other than his own word. Because he said so. Some peers and even a family member have what? Privately expressed doubts. His own family members privately expressed doubts. They didn't want to just put him on blast completely. Don't put my name out there, but privately they saying, Dr. Ben is bullshitting y'all. We are not no goddamn Jewish, Puerto Rican, or Ethiopian. Okay? Now, Dr. Jochannan's academic record is disputed with his claims he was educated variously in Puerto Rico, Brazil, Cuba, Spain. God damn! Puerto Rico, Brazil, Cuba, or Spain, earning degrees in either engineering and or anthropology. It is in 1938 he's said to have earned a BS in civil engineering at the University of Puerto Rico. This is disputed as registrar has no record of that bullshit, he said. They have no record of his attendance. He stated that in 1939 he earned a master's degree in architectural engineering from the University of Havana, which is in Cuba, family. Also claimed to have earned doctoral degrees, plural, in cultural anthropology and Moorish history from the University of Barcelona in Spain. Family, there is no such degree called Moorish history anywhere on the planet Earth. He lied. Respectively, and advanced degrees from where? Cambridge University in England. God damn. Both Barcelona and Cambridge say that he never received a degree from either university. And furthermore, Cambridge University said it had no record of Ben Jochannan ever attending any class there. Cambridge and Barcelona, Spain said, get that bullshit out of here. We don't know the nigga. According to his obituary, and we're going to move on, Dr. Ben holds an honorary doctor degrees from Sojourner Douglas College, Baltimore, Marymount College, New York, and Medgar Evers College, Brooklyn. I guess they gave him one, but this says according to his obituary. I haven't looked into that. Maybe you guys can. The New York Times summarized the lifelong inconsistencies in his public record. In his reported academic record. Who reported it? He did. What are they saying? Not just an inconsistency or two. Follow me and listen to my wording. They said a lifelong consistencies. Meaning he was lying about everything in his life for a long time. Documents from Cornell University show Dr. Ben lied. They don't say that, but documents from Cornell University show Mr. Ben holding a doctorate from Cambridge University in England, while conversely, catalogs from Malcolm King College list him as holding 2 master's degrees from Cambridge. In other words, he lied to Cornell. Ricky, I'm going to call you right back. I'm doing a live. Give me about 30 minutes. Okay, list him as holding 2 masters. So, where did I leave off at? As holding 2 master's degrees from Cambridge University, according to Fred Lusga, communications officer at Cambridge. However, the school has no record of his attending, let alone earning any degree. Similarly, the University of Puerto Rico, where he also said he had studied, has no records of his enrollment. Indeed, it appears that Dr. Ben consciously falsified much of his personal academic history. What did he do? He falsified. Let's move forward and let's get to the nitty gritty. Let's get to the nitty gritty. Accounts agree on little else other than that Ben was raised in the Caribbean and immigrated to the... Now, if you're in the Caribbean, any black person in the Caribbean came from West Central African stock, the slave trade. He is from probably the goddamn Congo if you do his DNA. Okay? In the Caribbean and immigrated to the United States about 1940, where he reportedly worked as a draftsman and continued his studies. He later stated that in 1945 he was appointed chairman of the African Studies Committee at the headquarters of the newly founded UNESCO. He said he worked for them until 1970. However, UNESCO staff state that they have no record of Dr. Ben ever having been employed by United Nations. Dr. Ben also stated he began teaching Egyptology at Malcolm King College in Harlem, 1950. But this volunteer run effort was not founded until 1968. Now, not only did he lie about his educational credentials, he lied about where he worked. God damn, Dr. Ben. This seems like some habitual shit. So you got guys out here like Brother Reggie sat at the feet of a habitual liar, sat at the feet of a subpar teacher. Let's continue. In 1970, Dr. Bill met, let me just move on. Dr. Ben was author of 49 books, primarily on what? The ancient Nile Valley civilizations and their influence on Western cultures. Dr. Ben was the author of 49 books, primarily on what? Ancient Nile Valley civilizations and their influence on Western cultures. Wait a minute. Hold up. You mean Dr. Ben didn't teach black Americans black American history? Dr. Ben didn't teach black Americans Western Central African history? Ever? Shameful. Why would Dr. Ben teach black Americans Caucasoid history, North African history, history up out the Levant, which we ain't got shit to do with? Dr. Ben disrespected us. Dr. Ben disrespected our intelligence. Dr. Ben didn't claim he was from West Central Africa, which he is, ancestors is. On top of not claiming to be of us, he didn't teach us our shit. Think about that. I'm not from you guys' stock. I'm of this Jewish and Ethiopian and Puerto Rican stock. Fuck that West Central Africa shit. By default, that's what he's saying. And I'm not going to even teach you black American history. I would debate religion, but I'm not going to teach you black American. What the hell are we doing? How did we get caught up in the cult of this cult leader named Dr. Ben? Let's continue. In his writing, he asserts that the original Jews were from Ethiopia and were Africans. Okay, he says that Semitic Middle Eastern Jews later adopted the black Jewish faith of his customs. He further accused Semitic Jews of special powers to manipulate and control the minds of the world, and claimed that the Holocaust education is a form of brainwashing. And it just disrespect other people's Holocaust. How are you going to tell the Holocaust education is a form of brainwashing? I mean, that's just like disrespectful to Jewish people. According to his obituary, Ben Jochannan began his educational teaching in Harlem in 1967 at Harry U. Act. He worked as an adjunct professor 19 at Cornell University. Okay, this is not what I want to go to. Let's move on. During his career in the 80s, Dr. Ben was well known for his leading guided tours in the Nile Valley. Dr. Ben's 15-day trips to Egypt, billed as Dr. Ben's Alcubaline educational tours, using, he said, was an ancient name for Africa, typically ran 3 times a summer, shuttling as many as 200 people to Africa per season. 3 times throughout the summer, he would take many people to Egypt, and guess what he charged? $1,500. Say 200 people times $1,500 on a 15-day tour. That's called a hotep hustle. He's the father of the hotep hustle. Okay. Accusations of teaching pseudo history. Now, why do people in the conscious community who revere this man have to go to Wikipedia and they talking about he's teaching pseudo history? Dr. Ben has been accused of distorting history and promoting what? Black supremacy. Dr. Ben was promoting racism. You know our brother Ankh always says white supremacy. What did he say? What does he say? Racism, white supremacy. No, you never said racism, black supremacy. because that's what the fuck was really going on. In February 1993, Wesley College European classicist Mary Lefkowitz publicly confronted Dr. Ben about his teaching. Dr. Ben taught that Aristotle visited Library of Alexandria. It's a problem with that claim. During the question and answer session following the lecture, Lefkowitz asked Dr. Ben, how would that have been possible when the library was not built until after his death? Wrong. He got called out on that. Dr. Ben replied that the dates were uncertain. Lefkowitz writes that Dr. Ben proceeded to tell those present that they could and should believe what only black instructors told them. Remember the other day I told you? All these pseudos, all these people want to remove the professionals out your way. Fuck them nutritionists and dietitians. Listen to Dr. Sebi and Brother Polite. Listen to Layla Africa. Get these PhDs and these credentialed people out the way. We got you. So Dr. Ben said they should only believe what black instructors told them. This is a running theme in the conscious community. It has always been a running theme. And that although they might think that Jews were all hook-nosed and sallow-faced, there were other Jews who looked black like himself. African-American professor Clarence E. Walker wrote that Dr. Ben Jochannan not only confused Cleopatra with her daughter, stated that Cleopatra was black. Dr. Ben lied and said that. Who said this? Clarence E. Walker. Guess who Clarence E. Walker is, people? Clarence E. Walker. The argument about Afrocentrism. We can't go home. Clarence Walker, who is a PhD, a black man, said, get that bullshit Afrocentrism out of here. Why did he say that? You know how a person read a book by when he outlines shit and then he has shit written and shit? Ask Ankh to show any of them books where he wrote in these books, where you can tell he read them because he wrote on them. Oops. Underline things. When I read a book, I meticulously go through a book. I underline important things and I outline them in case I want to go back. That's all through this book. You know a person read it because they usually underline shit in it. Wait a minute, let me get this in the camera. You see? Okay. What did Clarence E. Walker say about Afrocentrism and what niggas did to y'all? The scholars who call themselves Afrocentrists, have not written history in the strictest sense of the term. What they have produced is a therapeutic mythology designed to restore the self-esteem of black Americans by creating a past that never was. That shit never was, y'all. That history they made up. They lied. It's pseudo-history. It's revised history. Let's read that sentence again. The scholars who call themselves Afrocentrics have written history in the strictest sense of the term. What they have produced is a therapeutic mythology designed to restore the self-esteem of black Americans by creating a past that never was. Concocting for themselves and their followers a mix of historical notions and views. I can go on, but I don't want to be here all day. Thank you, Clarence Thomas, for this book. So in other words, these Afrocentrics knew you were uneducated. They knew you had low self-esteem. You didn't want to represent Western Central Africa because Western Central Africa was a bit underdeveloped compared to people in the Mediterranean world. It's just a reality. It's okay. So they created fake history to put in your face to make you smile. So here you are. Yeah, Dr. Ben, you are right. Fuck them white folk. Yeah, we built them pyramids. Yeah. Professor Smalls, yeah. Infodici, yeah. Oh, yeah. Malefe Asante, yeah. Oh, we get it now. We are the ones. We competing with white folks. We had better achievements than white folks. We built the pyramids. That's what it was all about. Oh, we got 60 in the clip. That's what it was all about. Now, Let me move on to some other things that you may not even have known about Dr. Ben. Let's go on back. Where was I? Let me end this Wikipedia article. Okay, we're off that. Now, when an entire major newspaper like the New York Times, who wrote this article called Contested Legacy of Dr. Ben, father of African studies, has to write a whole article about you saying you're a fraud, that's bad. It's bad. Let's not be deceived or fooled. It's okay. We have to retire Dr. Ben's teachings and everything he said, throw his books in the trash, and use it to heat and burn them. Heat up your home with them. I'm just kidding. Let me stop being so. Okay, let me skip past this because this is just briefly talking about Dr. Ben and what he meant to black folk, right? Uh, 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 um, so let's just skip on down. It's just saying people thought he was all that, right? Says he's a kind of godfather to all of us in African and African American studies, Cornell West said at this time. And yet to, here we go, here we go. We're going to breeze through this, and there's some things I'm going to get to. And yet to others, Dr. Ben Jochannan was an imposter and in a historical revisionist. Didn't I tell you he was revising history? The Anti-Defamation League, troubled by books of his with titles like "We Are the Black Jews," "Witness to the White Jewish Race Myth," saying you niggas is fake, we are the real ones. That would piss a lot of people off. If some Irishmen said, you niggas in New York, LA, you didn't start breakdancing. You guys didn't start hip hop. We did that shit. You would be pissed off. If Irish people started writing books and said we're the real people of hip hop, we started that shit, Black America would be pissed off. Okay. They called him an anti Semite. He was an anti Semite. It's okay. His work, the group once wrote, was blatantly inaccurate. Not just inaccurate, blatantly inaccurate. And what? Unworthy of any educational institution. So I hear these guys on a live stream, oh, these universities, they people respected him. No, black folk at black schools and black other educators respected him. The water academia had no respect for Dr. Ben and didn't agree with shit he was talking about. Let's be real. But Mr. Ben's legacy is not confined to academic debate. Baby, what's up? Huh? I'm gonna call you back. I'm on the live. Um, But Mr. Ben's legacy is not confined to academic debate. As part of his enterprise, he took thousands of black Americans on tours to the Nile Valley to visit pyramids and temples of ancient Egypt, where he always took special care to point out the faces on the statues and shapes and figures and hieroglyphs. Asked in the weeks before his death what drove him to make these repeated pilgrimages to Egypt, Dr. Ben cleared his throat, answered very slowly, I wanted people to see their face were the same. He wanted black folk because he was taking black Americans back and forth. Let's be clear. He wanted us to see our face and that our face was the same as the Egyptians. Dr. Ben was born, he claimed, in Ethiopia to an Ethiopian Jewish father and to a Puerto Rican mother, herself from Yemeni Jewish stock. Whoa! Let's show what Yemeni Jewish stock looks like. Dr. Ben is trying to say this is his mother and where she come from. Jewish Yemeni stock. Stop the cap, Dr. Ben. Stop the cap, Dr. Ben, you liar. We have nothing to do with these people. This is what he claimed. I'm not putting no words in his mouth. Let's look at some more people he said he came from. Right here. Habani Jews. Yemen stock. You know where Yemen is? Are you kidding me? Brother Reggie, you ain't checked this shit? Nobody checked this shit out of fear. You niggas need to repent, ask yourself for forgiveness, and retire Dr. Ben immediately. Don't bring up his name no more. His works were not worthy of educational institutions. You've seen it. These people ain't got shit to do with Dr. Ben or his mama. But there's little evidence for that other than his own words. Some peers and even family members have what? Like I said, some family members have privately expressed doubts. So look here, not just Chief X, his own children. I forgot where he read it, where one of his children said it's a bunch of bullshit. Get mad at his children, don't get mad at me. Okay, most accounts agree that wherever he was born, Mr. Ben was raised in the Caribbean and moved to New York. New York is full of frauds and scammers. Harlem at the time was swirling with various strains of black nationalism. That shit was cracking back then. In the wake of Garvey, Pan-Africanist movement, this is where Dr. Ben found his voice. So Dr. Ben said, let me get my ass up in here in Harlem with all these other frauds and shit. You know, he was saying, hey, Fard Muhammad, Elijah Muhammad, Noble Drew Ali, everybody else is lying. Why can't I lie also? Niggas don't know no better. Let me lie also. Let's continue. And talking about he later began teaching at where? Harlem Prep. What is Harlem Prep? An experimental school that opened in 1967. Uh-oh. Oh, they'll take anybody in to help these kids in Harlem. Let's show you what Harlem Prep is. Here we go. Black kids. But guess who ran Harlem Prep? Let's just read just a few paragraphs about Harlem Prep. It started one afternoon when the Schoenberg Center for Research in Black Culture in Harlem. I stumbled across a vague title. Let me just hold it up. Okay, anyway. This was a school that was only open for what, 4 years? Okay? And the principal, excuse me, Dr. Hussein Ada jumped this off. Dr. Hussein Ada. You can easily look him up. Let's look up this man and see who he is. Bam! There goes Dr. Hussein. At the top it says, more stories from Harlem Prep. You see it highlighted in blue? He set off that school to help black kids, and they got funding from the Ford Foundation. Uh-oh! Who else got funding from the Ford Foundation to get their education? Dr. Khalid Muhammad. Oh, y'all didn't know that? Let me teach you newbies something. Dr. Khalid Muhammad got funded by the Ford Foundation to get his education and his bachelor's degree. Dr. Khalid Muhammad have a real bachelor's degrees. But guess what Dr. Khalid Muhammad don't have? A PhD. Dr. Khalid Muhammad is not a real PhD. Uh-oh. Now, I love Dr. Khalid Muhammad. That's my nigga. I'm not going to disparage him. I'm just letting you know he don't have a PhD. A lot of people claim credentials they never had. So I was going through this and I was reading these, watching these different brief videos of the man talking how he met. Right here it says talking to Malcolm X about Baha'i faith. He was an Iranian man. He sat here and talked about this.
Why I get involved with Harlem Prep is it's a very good question. I think most likely was my belief in Baha'i teaching, and then of course the opportunity for a foreigner, for somebody from Iran, to be involved in the cutting edge of educational reform and dealing with the people like Ed Carpenter, Whitney Young, all these leading folks who really were.
Now, mind you, he will never mention Dr. Ben's name, not once. I think even if Dr. Ben did teach there briefly, he probably got into it and got his ass up out of his school with that bullshit Dr. Ben was on.
in the in the business of reforming the educational system in this country, and it was exciting period. So some of it was my religious ideology, some of it is my desire to see the better life for a minority, which I felt like I was one of them, and also the idea that day to day I'm interacting with the best and the brightest of America. I love to share this story about some of the interesting thing that was happening in school. School was lots of fun. We had so many exciting visitors. We had Minister Farrakhan every other month would come and try to, because we had lots of black Muslim students. We were trying to encourage them, make sure they stay in the school, make sure the school is safe and all that. We had a fellow like William Buckley, a great conservative. No, he's the one from Yale who wrote that book, God is Dead at Yale, something like this. He comes and give lectures and then make a large contribution. We had Rockefeller come to visit. We have Senator Javid come to visit. But then on some occasion, there was some unusual incident. I'm sitting in my office.
Now he goes into storytelling. I'm gonna listen to this man a little more later because he was interesting, telling some interesting stories. And when you go to like his page, he got a bunch of different videos coming to America, um, uh, from mobs in Iran to the Ku Klux Klan, prejudice in Iran, prejudice in America. So he was familiar with black folk and minorities, but he mentioned everyone who visited the school, who had something to do with the school that impressed him, and not once did he say Dr. Ben. He mentioned every other credentialed person except Dr. Ben. Why? Let's cook. Now, let me just finish this article. And many other alumni. However, there is still so much that is yet to be known. Fascinating questions about teaching and learning educational philosophies. Wait a minute. Am I on the right page one again? Community building and the untapped potential of young people that I. Wait a minute. Okay, this is about Harlem Prep School. So you can see it was all black students. They got funding. They had all these teachers come on. He had fun. They learned. And I think he was maybe up for 4 years. Okay. Now back to this. He later began teaching at Harlem Prep. They're talking about Dr. Ben, right? An experimental school that opened in 1967, right? And at Malcolm King, Harlem College Extension 2 year. Okay, blah, 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 blah. Dr. Ben's what? Self-published books, probably not peer-reviewed, okay? Self-published books, around 20 volumes in total, with titles like Africa, the Mother of Western Civilization, The Black Man in the Nile and His Family. Family, come on. When he says Africa, the mother of Western civilization, he's talking about black folk. And trying to give us the credit, right? Ignore, Ignored by academia, they became staples in Afrocentric libraries. Meaning his books and his information was what? Ignored by academia. So Ankh and them people talking about academia. No, academia didn't give a fuck about Dr. Ben and didn't agree with Dr. Ben. Okay? I consider Dr. Ben the greatest of the self-trained historians, says Paul Coates. Let's just continue on. Um, okay, here we go. During that period, Dr. Ben Jochannan, 15-day trips to Egypt, billed as Dr. Ben's Al-Qubalon educational tours, which he said was an ancient name for Africa, were more popular than ever. They typically ran 3 times a summer. His tours were ran 3 times a summer, shuttling as many as 200 people to Africa per season. In 1987, one ticket, all expenses paid, was $1,500. That's the Hotep hustle. Here comes Anthony Browder, who done the cover for one of his books in '74. Anthony Browder say we are direct descendants of the ancient Egyptians. It's a connection. I always taught that ancient Egyptians. I was always taught that ancient Egyptians were Caucasian, said Anthony Browder, who traveled with Dr. Ben in the '80s. But in southern Egypt, Mr. Browder saw statues of pharaohs that left him speechless. Okay? Now, you guys were talking that shit. Oh, well, he couldn't have got the education way back in his day. Stop. When Dr. Ben was teaching at these schools, it was in the '70s and in the '80s and very late '60s. There was plenty education to people available to people in the '70s, in the '80s. Why didn't he go to school and get his education? Stop making up excuses. Niggas tried to backdate it, talking about, oh, 1918. We're not talking about when he was born. We was talking about when he had his ass in New York teaching. '70s and '80s. He could have got an education. There's no racism preventing him from going to school to get a bachelor's degree. He just didn't do it and he lied. God damn. It's not that hard to be honest. Okay. Okay. Dr. Ben's embellishments seem to serve a larger purpose, gesturing to a distant past, establishing a grand narrative, and creating a mythic public persona. Others appear to be more falsehoods and plain deceit. The nigga was talking falsehoods and being deceitful. Documents from Mountain, blah, 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 blah. Let me just keep going on because I don't want to be too long. It's also telling you none of these colleges have no records of his enrollment, right? People condemn me for not being an intellectual of the PhD type, Dr. Ben once said, reacting to questions later raised about his resume. While he used the white man's credential to go certain places, Mr. Ben Jochannan said he refused to let the white man certify his work. It was something I wanted to touch on before I leave this article. We're not going to be here for much longer. Um, hmm. Okay, that's the end of it. Now, what you don't know is when people say, "Oh, he was teaching at Cornell University and such and such and such and that." Oh, Dr. Ben taught it. Where's it at? I'm trying to find where I can say where it says it. He was a visiting professor, meaning you visit what you call a host university. They host you. Example: Garfield Reed once claimed to teach at a college. In some idiot's mind who don't know no better and don't understand the meaning of titles, they're going to say, oh, shit, Garfield was teaching at college. It's because Dr. Mayotte invited him there one time to teach about credit repair one day for a couple hours. Right? So now he makes the claim that he taught at a college. So colleges have visiting professors. Right? It's not like he's a full-time professor teaching a full course at Cornell University where he's there 8 hours a day and got students this period, that period, and all semesters for you. No, 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 no. They pick and choose people who may specialize in something. Hey, come up in here and give a lecture on this. maybe for an hour once a month or whatever the time is. I don't know. I don't have his time card records, but let's just see. It says in there in the literature that he was a visiting professor. What does it mean if someone is a visiting professor? A visiting professor is a professor who teaches at a university, college on a short-term contract. Contracts for visiting professors may last for only a single semester. However, other visiting professors may receive contracts for 2 to 3 years. Visiting professors don't have tenure, meaning you're not a full-time professor like people will want people to believe he was. I don't know how long. What about his contracts? I don't have the specifics of it. I'm just letting you know. I always knew he wasn't no full-time professor where he was getting paid by Cornell. He was under a contract by somebody who asked him to come there and speak from time to time on a subject that he specializes in. You're not no real professor. You don't have tenure. But to do this, he lied his way into certain places and said he had this. So they say, okay, well, come on and speak. You can read about how to become a visiting professor. Okay? I just wanted to throw that little tidbit out there. Because people think he was just some full-time professor at Cornell and teaching 8, 5, 6, 7 classes. No, he probably came in to lecture about Egypt every now and then. Okay? All this. Wikipedia has whole articles on a visiting scholar or visiting professor, a visiting fellow, a visiting lecturer. It's all the same thing. If you want to say a visiting, oops, I'm sorry. If you want to say a visiting scholar, okay. Visiting scientist, visiting researcher, what? Visiting fellow, visiting lecturer. You're just lecturing on something you're proficient in or they think you may be proficient in. Or visiting professor. Who they do, they visit at a what? Host university. You don't really work for the university. They're just hosting your ass. And you're doing a what? A lecture. Probably up in there telling jokes and shit. Okay. Okay, so let's move on from that. Just to be clear on that. Now, this is hard on prep school, just a little history. And it says it was from 1967 to 1975. So excuse me, I was off a couple years. 5, 6, 7, 8. At most, the school ran for 8 years. From 67 to 75. Who knows how long Dr. Ben was there. But I just know the CEO, the principal of the school, never mentions his name in any of his videos. More than likely, they fell out or he just disagreed with his academia because he's a real PhD. Now, talking about his mother's of Yemenite Jews. Read about Yemenite Jews. They're not black folk. See, in 2000, ignorance is a choice in 2024. I'm telling you that from Dr. Ben on, they always said what? That these were our ancestors, meaning you descend from these people. Let's stop playing these motherfucking games, okay? Now, what do I want to touch on? This is the last point I want to touch on. This is Dr. Ben's book, The Black Man's North Africa and East Africa. God damn, Dr. Ben, you're still in all of North Africa? Dr. Ben is claiming we black folk were that Hannibal was black. Greeks was black. Where do you think y'all got people got that shit from? They got that shit from Dr. Ben. In 1971, he was saying that. I'm gonna show you. The black man's North Africa, meaning North Africa was black. So this is why you niggas never knew that North Africa was never black Africa. I was the first one that said that shit and challenged you niggas to find me a Negroid tribe in North Africa, indigenous Negroid tribe. You niggas haven't came up with one name yet except Nubians. Let's see what Dr. Ben was talking about in 1971, claiming North Africa. Al Kibilan Books Association, right? Here we go. Let's go to page 2. He starts off talking about the Ethiopians, Negroes, class slash Bantus, right? Of Carthage, right? He's trying to say Carthaginians are black folk. Uh, is this page 2? The amalgamation with so-called Negroes of Carthagis caused the Negroes to become Phoenicians. Then nigga even said, we were the Phoenicians. It's right here in this book. And he talks about with some kind of secret information available to themselves and not to the ancient Europeans of the Mediterranean. Clearly, Dr. Ben knew about Mediterranean people because he called these Europeans of the Mediterranean, particularly Greeks, Romans, who wrote about the ancient Ethiopians or Africans of North Africa without mention of any Semitic people of Carthage, of any, okay, and he just goes on, right? He's trying to say Greeks, early Greeks, Romans, Carthage was black folk. And then he even has the coins of a black Hannibal right here. He's teaching black Americans this false, revised history with the black Hannibal coins. Hannibal was not black. We hashed that out. Those are fake coins. We've seen the real coins of Hannibal. Then he goes on, in page 3, let me just show you. I don't know if you guys can see this. Maybe you guys can pull this up later because this whole book is online, right? He is talking about Semitic nose. One hears so much about latency. This is typical of the so-called Negroes' broad nose and woolly hair. One sees this in the Harlems of the United States. So he's saying them Carthaginians, them Greeks, and these Romans look like the blacks in Harlem. What is y'all talking about? Now, it's some more stuff I was going to go through, but I didn't want to be here that long. So, let me just show you this one more last thing. Let me put the invite link up here just in case somebody just wanted to come on. Um, okay. Now, let me show you a real scholar who is not questioned. Now, you niggas had the audacity to call a subpar teacher a master teacher. Who says that? Do white folk go around saying this is a master teacher? In other words, the master, the cult leader, and his subjects, Brother Reggie, Ashwakwezi. He is our master. What? And you subpar. The entire world of academia don't fuck with you. How is you a master teacher? Look here, family. Let's do this. And this is the last point. This is a master teacher, Dr. Henry Louis Gates, who teaches at an Ivy League school and is well respected. Afrocentrics can't stand this man. There's no one in black America who has put more info out on the scene about black American history. Listen to my word. I didn't say African history. I said black American history than Dr. Henry Louis Gates. The Black Church documentary, Your Culture and History Here in America. Why they hate this man? I told you, and I asked Reggie the same question on the live stream. Bottom line, because Dr. Henry Louis Gates wouldn't get in a car with them Afrocentrics, and he wouldn't help them niggas hotep hustle. Dr. Henry Louis Gates says, fuck that dumb shit you niggas talking about. I'm on my own. You ain't gonna get me fired from this good paying job teaching some fake ass history because I got an agenda. Dr. Henry Louis Gates wasn't with that agenda. That's why they didn't like him. He wouldn't help them niggas hotep hustle. Let's go. Henry Louis Gates. Now, Wikipedia don't say nothing bad about Henry Louis Gates. But all through Wikipedia, you talk about Dr. Ben, they clowning this nigga as a pseudo historian. So you guys sided with the devil over God. I'm just giving an analogy. You sided with the devil over a real one. Okay, is an American literary critic, professor, historian, and filmmaker who serves as the Alphonse Fletcher's University professor and the director of the Hutchings Center for African and African American Research at Harvard University. God damn, he got credentials. He is a trustee of the Gilder Lehrman Institute of American History. He rediscovered the earliest known African American novels and has published extensively on the recognition of African American literature as part of the Western canon. In addition to producing and hosting previous series on the history and genealogy of prominent American figures since 2012, Gates has been the host of the television series Finding Your Roots. He was showing you niggas that you West and Central African and keeping that shit real with that series. The series combines the work of expert researchers in genealogy. Now, if you ever watch Dr. Skip Gates videos and documentaries, he will only have professionals as guests come on who have credentials. Like Tariq Nasheed, he'll have Brother Polite, Mfudishi, you know what I'm saying? Dr. Umar Johnson, a fraud and scammer. All the fraud and scammers come to Tariq's documentaries, but not his. He don't play with you weak ass, that weak ass shit, right? Early life and education. Gates was born in September 1950 in Kaiser, West Virginia. To Paula, his whole history is here, right? Um, he letting you know he descend from the He letting you know he descends from the Yoruba people of West Africa. He keeps it real. He didn't tell you some Yemen, Jewish, Puerto Rican. He told you the truth. Why you don't respect the truth? He also learned that he has 50% European ancestry, right? Now let's look at his qualifications. After graduating Piedmont High School, Gates attended Potomac State College of West Virginia University for 1 year before transferring to Yale. Oh, and every college he went to got a record of him being there and attending. Which we graduated in 1973 with a BA summa cum laude in history, and membership of the Phi Beta Kappa. Upon graduating from Yale, Gates became the first African American to be awarded a Mellon Foundation Fellowship. He sailed to England on the Queen Elizabeth. Now, he actually been to England. Dr. Ben lied about Cambridge in England. He actually went there, but you rather believe the fraud over the real one. He sailed to England on Queen Elizabeth II and used the fellowship to pursue graduate study in English literature at Clare College, Cambridge. He really went to Cambridge. Dr. Ben didn't. In 1974 and a PhD in 1979. After a month at Yale Law School, Gates withdrew from the program. In October 1975, he was hired by Charles Davis as Secretary of African American Studies Department at Yale. In July 76, Gates was promoted to the Post Lecturer of African American Studies. He really got his education in African American Studies, with the understanding that he would be promoted to assistant professor upon completion of his doctoral dissertation. He was really employed at Yale as a real professor, full time, not visiting, not just doing a lecture every month. Okay? Jointly appointed to assistant professorship in English and African American Studies in 1979, Gates was promoted associate professor in 84. While at Yale, Gates mentored Jodie Foster, who majored in African American Studies. There he blah 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 blah. In 1984, Gates was recruited by Cornell. He was recruited by Cornell with an offer of tenure. See, he had tenure. Remember, I said Dr. Ben had no tenure, and I showed you he had tenure. Who you want to respect? What's wrong with y'all's mind? How did you get into that cult? How did I get into that cult? Gates asked Yale whether the university would match Cornell's offer, but they declined. Gates accepted the offer by Cornell in 1985 and taught there to 1989. Following a 2-year stay at Duke University, he was recruited to Harvard in 1981. Harvard, Gates, blah, 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 blah. So this is just his, I mean, he can go, we can go on and on. But check this out, and we're going to get, I'm going to end this, and I'm going to come back to y'all, right? Just check this out. Barack Obama sitting down with him, breaking bread. They drinking beer together, right? Having a toast. He does not advocate separatist black canon. He wasn't with that racism shit. That's why they didn't fuck with him. Okay? Um, Gates has argued that a separatist Afrocentric education perpetuates racist stereotypes. He didn't fuck with Afrocentrics. That's why the Afrocentrics don't like him. Don't listen to Reggie. Listen to me tell you about why. I've been around. I always wondered why they didn't like him. Even my teacher, Mathua Tar, told me way back in the 90s. He manifests that it is ridiculous to think that only blacks should be scholars of African and African American history and literature. He argues it can't be real as a subject if you have to look like the subject to be an expert in the subject. Adding, it is ridiculous, as someone said, I couldn't appreciate Shakespeare because I'm not an Anglo Saxon. Right, to study Shakespeare and teach about Shakespeare, you don't have to be an Anglo Saxon. To teach about certain things in Africa, you don't have to be African. I can go study Samoan history right now, deeply, and start teaching about it. I don't have to be Samoan. Okay? Okay. Gates has been criticized. Oops. So Gates has been criticized. Oops, damn. I don't know how he keeps doing that. Right? Where was I? Where was I? Here we go. Gates has been criticized by John Henry Clark, Molefe Asante, and the controversial Malanga Korana. See, these are y'all's gods. Now, I love Dr. John Henry Clark, but these are y'all's gods. Molefe Asante is supposed to be the father of Afrocentrism. John Henry Clark, Molefe Asante, Malawi Krango. You guys love these cats. Okay, so where do I want to end this? I mean, listen, family. It's so many credentials that go on and on. I can't even continue reading them all because we'll be here all day. So let's just do this. And let me come back to y'all. Oh, shit. Here it go, right here. God damn. You see right here where it says awards and honors? I mean, this is ridiculous. The awards and honors he received. Look how long this list is, and I'm not going to read it all. Received numerous honorary degrees. Named the MacArthur Fellow in 81. Elected to the member of the American Antiquarian Society. He won Ansfield's Wolf Book Award for editing 30 volumes of the Schoenberg Library. Niggas talk about Schoenberg all the time, right? Brother Reggie talks about, but guess what? Dr. Gates won an Anisfield Wolf Book Award for doing what? Editing the 30 volumes of the Schoenberg Library of 19th century black women's writers. Shut your mouth. These are just accolades and awards. Gates was elected to the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. He received the Golden Plate Award for the American Academy Achievement, presented by Awards Council member Quincy Jones. Gates was elected to the American Philosophical Society in 1995. He was listed in Time among its 25 most influential Americans in 1987. Ebony Magazine listed Gates among its 100 most influential black Americans, right? 2022, National Endowment for the Humanities selected Gates for the Jefferson Lecture. I mean, on and on. Gates received National Humanities Medal. He was elected for the American Academy of Arts and Letters. He received 2008 Ralph Lauren Award Corporation. October 29, Gates was appointed the Alphonse Fletcher University professor at Harvard University. I mean, on and on and on. Just look. NAACP Legal Defense Team. I mean, Brookings Institute. What? What? It's no black man in America that this much goddamn credentials and accolade. Gates was awarded 2019 Chicago Tribune. I can't even read all this. He got so many awards and accolades. Gates received the Muhammad Ali Voice of Humanity Award. He's a good guy, what they're saying. I mean, like, Time Magazine, Association for the Study of African American Life and Histories, inaugural Luminary Award. Like, Gates received PBS Beacon Award. God damn, you get a Beacon Award from PBS? Ah, look, Academy of Arts and Science. I mean, like, the National Institute of Social Sciences. I mean, you see how long I went on with all this, and I didn't even read it all. Family, Dr. Ben is retired officially as of right now. Chief X retired him. The gig is up. Iron Man, somebody said you got to go to the source. Was it Sheffrin and Corey? You got to go to the source of who these Afrocentric master teachers is and discredit him. He's discredited. What you gonna do now? Now, B Money, and he's right. I ain't gonna totally shit on the old scholars. They got me and a lot of people into the books. That's true. But guess what else is true? If Dr. Ben never existed, it would have been somebody who got you into the books. You see what I'm saying? So we got to be careful. I'm going to tell you who got me into the books and got a lot of people in the books, way more than Dr. Ben, the Nation of Islam. Dr. Khalid Muhammad. I was on a Dr. Khalid Muhammad was the main man I was introduced to when I was in a drug program in 1991. The cook of the drug program used to go back and forth with me, right? And I used to think he was the most smartest man in the world. He was a former member of the Asiatic cliques, you know what I mean? Former Nation Islam member. And his name was Jack. Jack did about 30 years in prison. Jack had a missing tooth. And I don't know if you guys remember that movie Penitentiary. The nigga named Half Dead had that crazy looking half a tooth and was wild like you know this nigga gonna kill somebody. That's how Jack looked in Compton. Nigga did 30 years. So he's a cook. He got him a job, is doing well and changed his life. And me and him used to go back and forth because he used to study when he was in prison. He was a Muslim. And I was a little Christian boy. Well, I was a man, but I was a really, really young man. And I used to have the Bible, and we used to be going back and forth. And he used to whoop my ass every day in discussions. I cut my teeth debating him, Jack. Whoop my ass. And one day he started liking to me. He seen I was into it and a truth seeker, and he just seen I wanted to have it. And he brought me the autobiography of Malcolm X. That book changed my life. Jack was a kind of crazy fool nobody fucked with. I mean, we sitting down around a table, just chit chatting, me and some other cats from Compton and shit, and we just, you know what I mean, just some OGs. And Jack looking like the dude half dead on the movie on that movie Penitentiary back in the day with no teeth and shit. Look crazy. Nobody want to fuck with Jack. Jack one day, let me show you what Jack did. Freaked everybody out. Jack went to his pocket one day and did this. Everybody jumped up from the motherfucking table. And Jack started picking the meat out of his teeth with a fucking switchblade. Niggas knew Jack was crazy. Who does that? Like, wow. And people, what the fuck? And got the hell away from Jack crazy ass. Nobody would fuck with Jack. But Jack at that time was one of the smartest men I ever known because he was coming with that Nation of Islam stuff. And he put me on game. And from then on, I was on a mission. I got out the drug program, was fucking up again, and went on a run, getting high again. Went in and out of the county jail. Picked up a couple petty thefts. They said the next time you come up in here, you're going to do 16 months state time and you're going to prison. I didn't ever catch a felony and do that 16 months. But when I was in and out the LA County Jail, 9500, all I did was go to whatever was so-called a library or get books and magazines, mind my motherfucking business, and had a dictionary. And I did exactly what Malcolm X said he did when he was locked up. Malcolm X said he used to read anything he can get his hands on. And right next to him, he would have a dictionary. So when he come across stuff in books and magazines that he was reading in prison and didn't understand a word, he would go to the dictionary and look up that word and learn that word. That's how Malcolm X developed an extensive vocabulary and self-educated himself when he was in prison. When I was in and out the county jail, that's how I stayed out of trouble. And I read and went to the dictionary because I remember Jack gave me that book and Malcolm X said that in his book. So when I come across words I couldn't understand, I go to the dictionary. all day long. And I go back to the read. And I developed the vocabulary doing exactly what Malcolm X did. That was my introduction to the community. Shortly after that, I got out. I found a little girlfriend. She was what they call it, a MGT sister, military girls training. She was a sister in the Nation Islam MGT, and she used to pick my ass up and take me to the mosque. She go on one side and sit, and I go on the other side and sit because in the mosque they have you separate. Women sitting on one side, men sitting on one side. After it's over, we go meet back up and get the hell out of here. That was my introduction. I never got suited and booted. I never was registered, but I would go to the mosque every Sunday and sit like they did. This is how they would sit. You know how the nation do it. You sit like this, with your right hand over your left hand, and sit down. We listen. I would do everything they would do. I would go to study groups with Malik. Everybody in LA, California know Malik's bookstore. Malik know me. What's up, Malik, if you listening? Malik bookstore in the early 90s. And at Malik's bookstore, it would be Arabs and all kind of people coming in and out. We was the debate scene. Every other day it seemed the debate scene. See, we was doing shit in LA just like shit was going on in New York. But y'all don't know West Coast cats because all you know is what Sinetta give you. And then eventually I would go to the Ashraf Kwesi's lectures. 95. Go to Khalid Muhammad's lecture at Long Beach State, a lecture on the art of war. I remember going to see Ashraf Kwesi debate Pastor Colin Ackridge. Look it up. You may see me in the audience. Dr. Khalid Muhammad versus Pastor Colin Ackridge at West Angeles Church. This was before there was a YouTube, niggas. I was comedic. This is before YouTube was out. You niggas is new. Shit. You know what I mean? I was on my road, on my journey. Right? Let me read a few comments. Let me read a few comments. It's the same way in Baltimore, Chef. Yep. You know, everybody had their thing. But so a lot of times people be like, oh, she, man, what do you, listen. See, we didn't have like a mogul media source like Sinetta in LA where you film all the elders and everybody who's in LA. Dr. Mathuatar, my teacher, and Ashraf Kwesi. Ashraf Kwesi was heavy in LA at the time. Here in Dallas now. We was heavy into this shit. My, you know, watch this. Let me show you. Hold on, y'all. Y'all done got me on a roll now. You done got me. We're gonna get out of here. Hold on, y'all. Let me just show you. Um, you know who my main man was? Damn, I spelled the name wrong. How the fuck he spell Steve? Let me show you right here. Let me share my screen. My main man, I went to every one of his lectures. Right, right here. You know what that is? That's me and Steve Coakley, way back in the day. You don't really notice him that well because he was sick. Maybe about a month before he passed away. He was in a wheelchair. So I wrote when I posted this, man, I miss Steve Coakley. This was some months before he passed away. My flashpoint to consciousness was the autobiography of Malcolm X in 1993, I think it was 92, which led me to the Marshalls, led me to Dr. Khalid Muhammad, right? And uh, 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 I used to be up under Steve Coakley. I remember Steve Coakley. Matter of fact, when Steve Coakley got sick, he was in a nursing care facility, a nursing home. And one of the nurses that was taking care of was this big booty chick who used to be, it's funny, who used to be a former porn star. And me and her used to fuck. I used to fuck his caretaker. Okay? So I remember Steve Coakley was lecturing at the Grassroots Theater, Grassroots Place. What's that place called? On Exposition in LA. Everybody knows about it. And he used to give lectures there. And I remember Steve Coakley finished his lecture, and he was counting his donations and money at the table, on a table on the side. And I walked up to him while he was counting his money, and he checked my young ass. Oh, Steve Coakley said, "The fuck is you doing walking up on me when I'm counting my motherfucking money?" Steve Coakley was a gangster. I'm like, "You don't do that." I was like, "No, sir. Thank you, sir." Okay, and I got the hell away from it. But from then on, we talked and we was cool, right? So Steve Coakley, Ashwat Quasi, Mathu Attar, you know what I mean? This is people who I was up under. I'm just going through a few of the questions, see if I missed something. I guess people having their own personal discussions. If you haven't hit the like button, I don't know what you're tripping on. Please hit the like button, please. Listen here, anyone listening to me, just tap that notification bell so you can get notified. You want to hear some real talk? Chief X got that real talk over here. Everybody else got an agenda and a snow job in your ass. I listened to that shit Unc and them was talking about. They was in here trying to protect Dr. Ben. So let's talk about it then. If you guys gonna have a subsequent live stream, ask yourself what did Dr. Ben get right, and you're gonna be stumped. Dr. Ben taught black folk they was Egyptians. He didn't teach black history. He didn't teach black American history. He didn't teach West African history, Central African history. He taught Caucasian history, North African history, Arab history, and he debated about religions. That was his stick. He wasn't even deep on ancient Egypt information. He was subpar. The entire conscious community cult got educated by subpar men. And that's the reality, people. That is the reality. On my way, as you say, 2024 is the year of the truth. Yeah, we're sick of it. What you say, Rashonda? Rashonda's the greatest moderator this side of the Mississippi. Oh, I didn't see that. Hey, all praises due to Gada for the super chat. All praises due. I didn't see that. Excuse me if you still listen. All praises due. I thank you. I'm solely grateful. Let me just do this. I'm gonna go back and watch this video and read the comments. It's just so many I missed, and I've been gone for an hour and 35. I was only supposed to do 35 minutes. Now, for this wonderful presentation and this truth telling, send your boy Cash app your boy $1. God damn you. Cash app me $1, $5, $10. You can even shoot me $100 if you're feeling generous. You've been cash apping Reggie. You've been cash apping Ankh. You've been cash apping all these Negroes for lies. Cash app me for the truth you get. He's from the Caribbean, G Styles. Somewhere in the Caribbean. Specifically where, I don't know. But definitely ain't nothing Ethiopian about him. B Money, send that $5, man. Egyptologist, hit the cash app. G Styles, hit the cash app. Manual testings, hit the cash app. Fida, cool. I was reading some of your shit in the chat, Fida. You were so right. You was right there. You was clowning. Come to my chat more often, Fida. You were so right. All that fraud shit came up out of thank you, Rashonda. All that fraud shit be coming up out of New York. Me and a friend was talking the other day. He told me, he said, New York got the biggest scammers on earth is in New York. Yeah. Palermo hit the cash app. But Fida hit the cash app. I'm just fucking with y'all. Dr. Banu, you hit your ass hit the cash app, goddammit. Chief X5. Before I expose you, Dr. Banu. No, I'm just playing. Hyro Charm, hit the cash app. That's chaotic. Hit the cash app. All right, that's all I had to say today. I got to go to this little spot tonight and pick up some items for my customers. I don't know if y'all know, but hold on. I got to pick up some, I got another height item I've been selling to friends. I'm like, the red pill. Take the blue pill. I got blue pills and a red pill. They're vegan gel caps. I really don't want to say what it is because it's kind of illegal. So you can just read it. What did I say? Don't nobody move this but Chief X. You can't find one cat in all states that move these but Chief X. Take the red pill. It's these are vegan mushroom soft gels. You got the plant. Hold on. You got the plant, and they extract plant nowadays and make them in a blue or red pill. Now I don't mess with them, but it's like it's just a hot thing right now. It's like the new cannabis. All right, so I gotta go pick up some stuff tonight in a minute. Cali cannabis infused berry gummies. You see, it says vegan. My shit be quality, family. Y'all don't understand. Y'all do not understand. These are my little personal, but these are uh, Hawaiian Punch flavored THC cannabis gummies. 50 milligrams a piece. Listen, I do this shit retail and wholesale. You niggas are sleeping. You know how to reach me. Family. Chief X is my nickname. Five. She said Chief X five. It don't hurt to send $2, $3. I'm out, y'all.